What up? Your boy C. Rizzy coming at you with Unit 4, Lesson 3, Triangle Congruence by ASA and AAS. Our essential question is, how else can I prove that two triangles are congruent? So far we've learned two methods, side, 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 and side, angle, side. So now we're going to learn two more methods in helping us prove two triangles are congruent. So our objective is to prove that two triangles are congruent by using ASA, which stands for angle side angle postulate, and AAS, which stands for the angle angle side theorem. So you can prove that two triangles are congruent without having to show that all corresponding parts are congruent. In this lesson, you'll prove triangles congruent by using one pair of corresponding angles. So the angle side angle postulate says if two angles and their included side of one triangle are congruent to two angles and the included side of another triangle, then the two triangles are congruent. So in the last section we did side angle side, where it was two sides and their included angle. Now I'm working with two angles and their included side. So it's basically saying that angle A and angle C are sandwich, make a sandwich with this side. So those angles are in between that side, so that's an included side. Angle, side, angle, and the same thing over here, angle, side, angle. So once you have that, then you can prove that the triangles are congruent and write our congruency statements. So which triangles are congruent by angle, side, angle? So here I have a triangle. It's got two congruent angles. And the question is, do those angles sandwich together side? They do. So which other angle does that? Well, this one does not. But this one has an angle, another angle, and it includes a side. So those two triangles are congruent by side, angle, side. And if we wanted to write a congruency statement, there's a bunch of ways we could write this, but I know angle G is congruent to angle C, angle H is congruent to angle A. So I'm going to say triangle GHO is congruent to triangle CAT. Okay, given angle CAB is congruent to angle DAE, which is marked. BA is congruent to EA, that's also marked. And B and E are right angles, prove that these two triangles are congruent. So this is a proof, so we're going to write a two-column proof with statements and reasons. So this side's going to be statements and reasons. So my first set of statements is everything that's just given to me. I'm not going to write it all out. You know what's given to us. Okay, statement 2. Well, I need to say something about B and E being congruent. So angle B is congruent to angle E. Why is that? That's because all right angles are congruent. So now I've got a pair of corresponding congruent angles, another pair of corresponding congruent angles, and their included side. So I can say that these two triangles are congruent. A, E, D. And they're congruent by the theorem that we just learned. Angle, side, angle, postulate. You don't have to write the postulate in a proof. That's just what it is. If you just wrote angle, side, angle, that would be good enough. Okay, and new one. Angle, angle, side. So, if two angles and a non-included side of one triangle are congruent to the two angles and the corresponding non-included side of another triangle, then they are congruent. So in this one, I have two angles and not this side, not that side, but a non-included side. And over here, it's the same thing, angle, 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 side. So the best way to do this is just to practice. Can I tell that these two triangles are congruent to each other? Well, I know these angles are congruent to each other because they're vertical. So, does angle, angle, side work? So angle A is congruent to angle I. Angle ARP is congruent to angle IRS. And then RS is congruent. Let me do it the other way. Hold on. RP is congruent to RS. So there's my angle, followed by another angle, followed by a side. So triangle PAR is congruent to triangle SIR by angle, angle, side. Okay, lesson check. Do you know how? In triangle RST, which side is included between angles R and S? So if I just drew RST, here's angle R, here's angle S. What's going to be the included side? Well, just look at the letters. R and S, so the included side is RS or SR. Just includes both the letters. In triangle NOM, and N is included between which two angles? Well, if we apply the same logic we just used, N and O, side NO is going to have included angles, angle N and angle O. And if we want to draw the picture just so we see it, NOM, here's N, here's O, their included side is NO. Which postulative theorem can you use to prove ABC is congruent to DEF? So number 3, I've got an angle, its included side, and another angle. So number 3 is going to be angle, side, angle. And in number 4, I have an angle, and a side, angle, angle, and a side. So this is going to be angle, angle, side. That's it for me.